The day my sons disappeared started like any other day on Kepler 9. I remember the dust. That fine, reddish-orange dust that gets into everything. Your clothes, your food, the crevices of your exoskeleton. It was a particularly bad morning for it. The wind had been howling all night, carrying particles from the southern Badlands across the agricultural district where we lived. I stood at the kitchen synthesizer, watching it hum and click as it prepared breakfast. The machine was old, probably older than me, with a distinct shudder in its mechanism that I'd learned to ignore over the years. The synthesizer had been my grandmother's, passed down through 3 generations, and it still bore the faded markings of the original colonial manufacturer. "Kale." "Wren," I called out, my voice echoing through our small dwelling. "Breakfast is ready." No response. This wasn't unusual. My sons were 14 and 12 respectively, at that age where they believed sleep was more important than anything else in the universe. Kale, the older one, had started growing into his adult carapace, that awkward phase where nothing fit right and he spent most of his time sulking in his room. Wren was still small, with the bright, inquisitive eyes of youth that hadn't yet been dimmed by the harsh realities of colony life. I walked down the narrow corridor, my clawed feet clicking against the metal floor panels. Our home was modest, 3 rooms, a sanitation unit, and the kitchen. It wasn't much, but it was ours. The walls were covered in holographic images of our family. My mate Taryn, who had died in the Great Plague 5 years ago. My mother, who had immigrated from the homeworld when she was just a larva. And the boys at various ages, growing from tiny hatchlings into the young adults they were becoming. I pushed open the door to their shared sleeping chamber. Empty. The bunks were made with typical teenage carelessness, blankets bunched at the foot, pillows on the floor. Kale's collection of data crystals was scattered across his desk, and Wren's favorite stuffed creature, a plush version of a native Keplerian burrower, lay abandoned on the floor. My stomach dropped. "Kale, Wren," I called again, this time with an edge of concern. I checked the sanitation unit. Empty. The small garden plot in the back where Wren liked to play with the bioluminescent soil beetles. Empty. The neighbor's dwelling. Empty. This was wrong. This was very wrong. My boys didn't just wander off. We lived on the edge of the agricultural district, and beyond our settlement was the untamed wilderness of Kepler 9, a world that didn't care about the fragile biology of its colonizers. There were predators in the tall grass, acid storms that could strip flesh from bone in seconds, and sinkholes that opened without warning. I activated my personal communicator, patching into the local network. "Emergency, my children are missing. Kale and Wren Vexara, ages 14 and 12. The response was immediate. Within minutes, a security drone was hovering at my doorstep, its single red eye blinking in that annoying pattern I'd come to associate with bureaucratic incompetence. "Please state the time of last contact, Citizen Vexara," the drone buzzed. "I told you this morning. They were gone when I woke up." "Have you checked the school system? Perhaps they left early for classes." "School doesn't start for another 2 hours, and they would have told me if they had a field trip or something." My voice cracked on the last word. I was trying to stay calm, trying to remember what the emergency protocols said, but my children were missing, and this stupid drone was asking me questions like I was filing a report for a lost data crystal. "I am flagging this as a Level 3 missing persons incident. Please remain in your dwelling while we conduct a preliminary scan." A Level 3. That was the lowest priority. It meant the system assumed my sons were simply playing hooky or had wandered off to a friend's house without telling me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I did something I'd been trained not to do. I left my dwelling and started searching on my own. Chapter 2. The agricultural district stretched out before me, a patchwork of synthetic fields and automated harvesters. The Kepler sun was just starting to crest over the eastern hills, painting the sky in shades of purple and green, standard for a planet whose atmosphere was a chemical cocktail of nitrogen, oxygen, and various trace gases that had taken colonists years to adapt to. I walked past the grain fields, calling out for my sons. My voice was lost in the whisper of the wind through the tall stalks, a sound that had always reminded me of the ocean on the homeworld, though I'd never actually seen an ocean, only heard about them in old stories. Kale Wren. Nothing. I found myself at the edge of the settlement, where the cultivated land gave way to wild prairie. The grass here was taller than me, swaying in the breeze like a living sea. Somewhere in that grass were creatures I didn't want to encounter, voracious herbivores with territorial streaks, carnivorous plants that could sense movement through the soil, and the occasional pack of wild greys, a native species that had learned that colonists made for easy prey. I should have stopped. I should have gone back to my dwelling and waited for the authorities to do their job. But I couldn't. Somewhere deep in my thorax, in that part of me that had been connected to my sons from the moment I carried their eggs, I knew they were out here, and they were in trouble. I pushed into the grass. The first thing that struck me was the silence. The usual hum of the settlement's energy grid faded away, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the distant cry of a bird-like creature that the colonists had nicknamed screamers for their unsettling call. I called out again, and this time I thought I heard something, a faint sound almost like laughter. I pushed forward, following the sound. The grass was thick here, and I had to use my forelegs to part it, my claws catching on the tough stalks. And then I found it. A path, not a path made by animals, but a path made by something intelligent. The grass had been flattened, trampled down by something large and heavy, and there, stuck to a blade of grass, was a scrap of fabric part of Wren's tunic. My heart was pounding now, a rapid flutter that I could feel throughout my entire body. I followed the trail, calling out their names again. This time I heard a distinct noise, a voice, human. That was impossible. Humans had been banned from this sector since the Interstellar Accords of 2397. They were a dangerous species, unpredictable, violent, and utterly incomprehensible to the rest of the Galactic Council. I'd never actually seen a human. They were more legend than reality on Kepler 9, but everyone knew the stories. Humans were the boogeymen of the galaxy. They were the reason we had security protocols. They were the reason our colonial outposts were fortified. And somehow, somewhere out in this wilderness, a human had found my sons. I broke into a run, pushing through the grass with reckless abandon. My sons were in danger, and I didn't care about the risk to myself. Chapter 3. The clearing was small, maybe 15 meters across, ringed by the tall grass that had hidden it from view. And in the center of that clearing, illuminated by the morning sun, was a scene I could hardly process. A human lay on the ground, sleeping. I'd seen holographic images before, of course, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of it. This creature was massive, easily twice my height and 3 times my mass. Its skin was an odd, pale color, and it was covered in what appeared to be strange markings, though I realized after a moment that those markings were actually clothing. The human wore some kind of gray fabric that had been torn and dirtied, and its head was covered in a thick growth of dark hair. But that wasn't the shocking part. Curled up against the human's chest, one on each side, were Kale and Wren. They were sleeping, their breathing slow and even, as comfortable as I'd ever seen them. My elder son had his head tucked under the human's chin, and my younger had his small claws wrapped around the human's massive forearm. They were being held, protected. The human's arms were wrapped around them, and even in sleep, it seemed to be radiating a warmth that had attracted my sons like moths to a flame. I stood frozen, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. The most dangerous creature in the known universe, a human, was using my children as pillows, and they seemed to be happy. I took a step forward, and my foot caught on a root, sending a loud crack through the clearing. The human stirred. I watched in horror as its eyes opened, pale blue, like the ice of Kepler-9's northern glaciers. It blinked once, twice, and then it saw me. In that moment I was certain I was going to die. I had heard stories of how humans moved, how they could shift from stillness to violence in the span of a heartbeat. There was no escaping it. This creature would kill me, it would kill my sons, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But the human didn't attack. Instead, it smiled, a slow, sleepy smile that crinkled the corners of its eyes. "Hey there," it said, its voice deep and resonant. "Are you there, Mom?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. My vocal apparatus had ceased to function. The human carefully extricated itself from my sons, moving with a gentleness that seemed completely at odds with everything I'd been told about its kind. It placed Ren gently on the ground, covering him with the torn fabric of its clothing, and did the same with Kale. Then it stood. I had never felt so small in my life. The human towered over me, its head almost brushing the tops of the grass. Its body was lean but muscular, and I could see the outline of strange equipment attached to its legs, weapons, I realized. This human was armed. "Name's Marcus," it said, extending one of its enormous hands. "Sergeant Marcus Chen, Earth Expeditionary Forces, and you are." I stared at the hand. In human culture, I knew, this was a greeting gesture, a way of showing that you were unarmed. But everything in my biology screamed at me to run, to flee, to get my children as far away from this creature as possible. Instead, I found myself reaching out and placing my smaller claw in its hand. The contact was warm, surprisingly warm. I'm Lyra," I managed to say. "Lyra Vexara, those are my sons, Kale and Ren." "Pleasure to meet you, Lyra," the human said, and I could have sworn it actually meant it. "Your kids are great. They found me last night when I was injured, patched me up, kept me warm. Really remarkable, actually. I didn't think your species was supposed to be this friendly to humans." My mind was still racing, trying to catch up with the situation. "Injured? What happened to you?" The human Marcus shrugged, a gesture I'd only seen in old entertainment vids. "Crashed. My scout ship went down about 5 clicks from here. I'm pretty sure I broke a few ribs, maybe my ankle. I was in pretty bad shape when your boys found me." "You were in a crash," I repeated, trying to process this information. "And my sons kept me alive," Marcus said simply. "They found me, realized I was hurt, and took care of me. They're good kids. You raised them well." I looked at my sons, still sleeping peacefully on the ground. They looked so small next to the human's discarded clothing, so vulnerable. "Why didn't they call for help?" I asked. "The emergency protocols." "I asked them not to," Marcus said, and there was something in his voice that made me stop. "Look, I know this isn't going to make sense to you, but my ship went down for a reason. I was running from something that's been hunting me across 3 systems. If I'd let your boys call for help, it wouldn't have been the authorities who showed up." I felt my blood run cold. "What was hunting you?" Marcus's eyes seemed to darken, his expression shifting into something more serious. "You don't know, do you, about the war?" "War? What war?" "The Interstellar Accords." "Let me tell you something," Marcus said, sitting down on the grass with a wince that suggested his injuries were more severe than he was letting on. "Those accords you're so proud of, they're a lie, a cover story. The galaxy isn't at peace. It's at war, and you just don't know it yet." Chapter 4. I sat down heavily on the grass, my legs suddenly unable to support me. This was too much. Too much information, too much strangeness, too much fear. My children had disappeared. I'd found them sleeping on a dangerous alien. And now this dangerous alien was telling me that everything I'd believed about the universe was wrong. Marcus seemed to sense my distress. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt anyone. That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Why did you come to Kepler 9? The human looked away, his gaze focusing on something in the distance. Because this is where it started. The war, I mean. It started here on this planet 50 years ago, and I'm here to find the weapon that can end it. A weapon, I asked. What kind of weapon? Marcus shook his head. I'm sorry, I've already said too much. The less you know, the safer you and your children will be. That's not good enough, I said, and I was surprised by the steel in my own voice. You show up on my planet, you crash your ship, you sleep on my children, and you expect me to just... What? Except that you can't tell me anything. My sons are involved in this now. I have a right to know. Marcus looked at me for a long moment, his eyes seeming to search my face for something. Finally, he nodded. All right, he said, but I'm going to tell you something that might change your life forever. Are you ready for that? I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. 50 years ago, the Galactic Council went to war with the Xylar Dominion. It was the biggest conflict this galaxy had ever seen. Millions of planets, billions of lives, all consumed by a war that everyone thought would never end. The Xylar were winning. They were faster, stronger, more advanced. The Council was losing. Badly. He paused, and I could see the weight of whatever he was about to tell me pressing down on him. Then the Council discovered something, Marcus continued. An ancient race, older than anyone had ever imagined, had left behind a weapon so powerful that it could destroy entire systems. The Council wanted to use it, but there was a problem. What problem? I asked. The weapon required a living pilot, Marcus said. A pilot of a specific species, one with the right biological and psychological makeup to interface with the technology. And when the Council started looking for that species, they found them on a backwater planet that they'd only recently discovered. A planet called Earth. It took me a moment to understand what he was saying. They found humans, I breathed. Marcus nodded grimly. They found us, and they didn't ask. They didn't negotiate, they just took us. Thousands of humans dragged off our planet and forced to serve as pilots for the weapon. And the worst part is it worked. We won the war, but the cost. He trailed off, his eyes distant. Most of those pilots are dead now. The ones that survived are scarred beyond recognition. And the Xylar, they didn't surrender. They just went into hiding, waiting, planning. And now they're ready to strike again. The Council is desperate. They want to use the weapon again, but most of the pilots are gone. So they've been hunting the few who are left. And you're one of those pilots, I said. Marcus nodded. I'm the last one, the very last human who can pilot the weapon. The Xylar have been chasing me for 3 years. They want to kill me before I can be used against them again. And I've been running, hiding, trying to stay one step ahead. But now, he gestured around him, now I'm on Kepler 9, and I'm injured, and I'm tired. I looked at my sons, still sleeping peacefully. Why did you tell them not to call for help? I asked again. Surely there must be someone you can trust. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Trust? In the Council, the same Council that dragged people off their homeworlds and forced them into slavery. The same Council that lied to the entire galaxy about the war ending. No, there's no one I can trust. Not the Council, not the military, not anyone. Then who do you trust? I asked. Marcus looked at me, and for the first time I saw something vulnerable in his eyes. I trust your sons, he said. They found me when I was hurt. They could have run away or called for help or done 100 other things, but instead they stayed with me. They took care of me. They kept me safe, and they didn't ask for anything in return. He paused. That's more than I've gotten from anyone in the past 50 years. I sat in silence, processing everything I'd just been told. This human, this dangerous, feared, legendarily unpredictable human, was running for his life. He was hiding on my planet, injured and alone, and the only people who had shown him kindness were my children. And now, because of that kindness, my family was in danger. Please, I said, my voice cracking, please just leave. Take whatever you need and leave. Don't bring this danger to my family. Marcus looked at me with something like pity. I can't, he said softly. I've been running for so long and I'm so tired. The Xyler found me. They know I'm on this planet. They're coming, and if I leave now, they'll just follow me. They'll tear this planet apart looking for me. He reached into his pack and pulled out a device I didn't recognize. I spent the night broadcasting a message to my squad on Earth, my old unit. Good people, the only people I know I can trust. They're coming, but it'll take time I'm not sure I have. There's no one here who can help you, I asked. No one on this entire planet. Marcus shook his head. The Council controls the colony. If I turn myself in, they'll just take me back to the weapon platform and use me until I die. And the Xyler, well, they'll just kill me. They've been trying for 50 years. I looked at my sons again, and a fierce protectiveness surged through me. Then we'll protect you, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Until your squad arrives, we'll keep you safe. Marcus stared at me. Why would you do that? I'm a stranger, a dangerous stranger from a species you've been taught to fear. Why would you risk everything for me? I thought about it, thought about my sons and their kindness, thought about the war that had been hidden from us for so long, thought about the weapon and the pilots who had been sacrificed to the Council's ambitions. Because you're not dangerous, I said finally. My sons saw that. They saw a living being in need of help and they helped. That's who they are. That's who I raised them to be. And I'm not going to let the Council or the Xyler or anyone else destroy that. Marcus smiled, and this time it was a real smile. You're something else, Lyra, he said. You're really something else. Chapter 5. For the next few hours we worked together to create a plan. Marcus explained that the Xyler would probably send a scout team to investigate his crash site. They'd be heavily armed, well-trained, and utterly ruthless. We couldn't fight them. We had to hide. But there were complications. Marcus was injured and he was enormous. There was no way to hide him in my tiny dwelling. And the settlement had sensors everywhere, designed to detect unauthorized movement. I know a place, I said, suddenly remembering. The old research station. It's about 10 clicks south of here, abandoned for years. No sensors, no surveillance, just empty buildings and old equipment. Marcus looked at me with a raised eyebrow. You think we can make it 10 clicks through that grass? He gestured to the towering stalks around us. I can barely walk, and with my injuries, moving that far would be. He trailed off, wincing as he shifted his weight. I thought for a moment. I have a transport, small, nothing special, but it can get us through the grass, and I know the way. Marcus shook his head. If the Xyler are tracking me, they'll have sensors that can pick up any vehicle. They'll spot us immediately. Not if we go through the tunnels, I said. The old irrigation tunnels. They run underground all the way to the research station. We'll be completely invisible. Marcus stared at me. You have tunnels under a colony that's supposedly at peace. That seems a bit paranoid. I felt myself flush. The colonists were suspicious of the Council. There have been conflicts in the past. The tunnels were built as a precaution. Conflict with the Council? Marcus asked. What kind of conflicts? I shook my head. Not now, we need to get moving, before the Xyler find us. With some effort, we managed to wake my sons and explain the situation. They took it remarkably well, far better than I'd expected. Cale, in particular, seemed almost excited. We helped a human, he said, his eyes wide. Mom, he's really a human, like from the stories. And he's not dangerous at all, Ren added. He's nice. He told us stories about Earth. They have oceans there, real oceans with water. Yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But now we need to help him stay safe. We're going to take him to the old research station. Do you remember the way? The boys nodded enthusiastically. They'd explored the tunnels before, much to my disapproval. Now, that recklessness might save our lives. Getting Marcus to the tunnel entrance was the hardest part. He was clearly in significant pain, his face pale and beaded with sweat. But he didn't complain, didn't ask for help. Humans, I was learning, were a stubborn species. Almost there, I said, supporting his weight as best I could. Just a little further. The tunnel entrance was hidden beneath a maintenance hatch, overgrown with the native flora. I discovered it years ago during a particularly dry season, when the irrigation system had malfunctioned, and I'd been forced to investigate. The tunnels were a relic of the colony's early days, built to ensure agricultural survival during the long, water-scarce seasons. "All right," I said, pulling open the hatch. "It's a bit narrow, you'll have to crawl." Marcus looked at the opening, then back at me. "You're joking, right? I'm not going to fit in there." "Shorter human than usual," I observed, "but you'll fit, trust me." With considerable effort, we managed to get Marcus down into the tunnels. The space was cramped, barely tall enough for him to crouch, and the darkness was absolute. "Here," I said, pulling out a small light source. "This way, stay close to me and don't touch the walls, there might be." "Don't touch the walls," Cale echoed. "Because of the slime, right?" "Among other things," I said darkly. We moved through the tunnels for what felt like hours. The passage was winding, the air thick and humid, and every sound seemed to echo endlessly. Marcus was breathing heavily, clearly in pain, but he didn't complain. Finally, after what seemed like forever, we reached the end of the tunnel. A rusted ladder led up to another hatch, and when I pushed it open, we found ourselves in the basement of an old building, the main lab of the research station. "Well," Marcus said, looking around at the abandoned equipment and the layers of dust. "It's not a five-star hotel, but it'll do." Chapter 6. We spent the next few days in the research station, waiting for Marcus's squad to arrive. He was in rough shape, his injuries worse than he'd let on, and I spent most of my time trying to make him comfortable while the boys entertained themselves by exploring the old facility. It was during one of those explorations that Cale found something remarkable. Mom, you have to see this." I followed his voice to one of the back rooms, where he was standing in front of a large machine I'd never seen before. It was covered in dust and cobwebs, but it hummed with a faint energy that suggested it was still operational. "What is it?" I asked. "Ancient technology," Marcus said, appearing in the doorway. "Looks like a communication relay, but not like anything I've seen before. This is old, really old." "I think it's from the original colonists," Cale said excitedly. "Like from the first expedition, before the council established control." Marcus moved closer, examining the machine. "It's definitely not standard issue," he said. "It's entirely different tech. I wonder if..." He reached out and touched a panel, and the machine came alive with a sudden burst of light and sound. For a moment we all stood frozen, waiting for something to happen, and then a voice filled the room. "Checking for signs of life. Repeat, this is Commander Akira Takahashi of the Earth Expeditionary Forces, transmitting on all emergency frequencies. If anyone can hear this, please respond." Marcus's face lit up. "Akira, that's my squad leader, she found me." He rushed over to the machine, frantically trying to figure out how to respond. "Commander Takahashi. This is Sergeant Chen. I'm here, I'm alive." For a moment there was static, and then, "Marcus, is that you? Where are you? What's your status?" "I'm on Kepler 9, Marcus said. "I'm with some locals, friendlies, I need extraction. There's been a complication." "We detected a massive energy reading from your location," Commander Takahashi said. "What's going on down there?" Marcus looked at me, and I could see the question in his eyes. He didn't know how to explain the situation to his commander. "They found something," Marcus said finally. "The people here, they found something, ancient technology. I think it's the same tech from the weapon platform, but different. I don't know how to explain it. I need you to come down here and see for yourself." There was a long pause. And then, "Hold on, Marcus. We're picking up another signal. A big one. Looks like Xyler battlecruiser heading toward the planet." My blood ran cold. The Xyler found him. They know he's here. "It's not just the Xyler," Marcus said, his face pale. "Akira, you need to get here now. They're going to attack the colony. They're going to kill everyone." "Not if I have anything to say about it," Commander Takahashi said. "Just hold on, Marcus. We're coming." The transmission ended, leaving us in silence. "We have to warn the colony," I said. "There's a Xyler ship coming and they don't even know it." Marcus shook his head. "There's no time. The Xyler will be here in a few hours. They'll start with orbital bombardment. By the time anyone in the colony knows what's happening, it'll be too late." "Then what do we do?" I asked. Marcus looked at the ancient machine. "I don't know," he said, "but I have a feeling that thing might hold the answer." Chapter 7. The Xyler attack came faster than anyone could have anticipated. We'd been in the research station for only 3 days when the first ships appeared in the sky. At first, they looked like distant stars, but they grew larger and larger until they blotted out the sun, casting a shadow over the entire planet. "Orbital bombardment," Marcus said grimly. "That's what they're going to do. They're going to burn everything. Every settlement, every city, every living thing." "No," I said, my voice trembling. "My sons, my family. Everyone I know." Marcus placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're not going to let that happen. I promised you I'd keep you and your family safe, and I keep my promises." He looked at the ancient machine. "That thing was built by a species that's been extinct for 1,000,000 years. They survived the Xyler or whatever came before them. They must have survived somehow. Maybe the secret is in there." I nodded, determined. "Then let's figure out how to make it work." For the next few hours we worked feverishly. The machine was like nothing we'd ever seen, complex, alien, and utterly mysterious. But Marcus was persistent. He'd worked with ancient tech before, he said. He knew how to read the patterns, to understand the logic behind it. "It's a shield generator," he said finally, stepping back with a triumphant shout. "An enormous one. It can create a bubble around the entire planet." "A shield?" I asked. "But how? There's no energy source, no power." Marcus grinned. "That's the beautiful thing. It doesn't need one. It draws its power from the planet itself, from the core. The energy is already there, just waiting to be used." "Can we activate it?" I asked. Marcus looked at the machine, his eyes scanning its controls. "I think so, but there's a catch. The machine was designed to be operated by a specific species, the same species that built the weapon platform, and I'm not that species." "So it won't work?" I asked, my heart sinking. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he spoke again, his voice measured. "It'll work, but it's going to take someone with a specific neural pattern, someone who can interface with the technology, someone like your sons." "What?" I asked, my voice rising in panic. "What are you talking about? My sons, they can't." "They can," Marcus said. "Your sons have been in contact with me. More than that, they've been in contact with the ancient technology. They've been carrying it in their DNA for generations. This planet, this technology, it was made for them. They can activate it." I looked at my sons, who were standing in the doorway, their faces pale but determined. "Mom," Kale said, "we can do this. We want to help." "It's not just help," Marcus said. "It's the only way. The Xyler are here. They're going to destroy everything. We have to try." I looked at my sons again, and I saw something in their eyes that I'd never noticed before. A strength, a courage. And I realized that whatever they were about to do, it wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. "All right," I said, my voice breaking. "All right, we'll try." The activation process was unlike anything I'd ever seen. My sons stood side by side. their small bodies radiating a soft blue glow that seemed to resonate with the ancient machine. The room hummed with power, and I could feel it in my very bones. "It's working," Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. "They're activating the shield." Above us I could see the sky changing. The Xylar ships were firing, brilliant beams of light streaking down toward the planet. But they stopped. They hit something invisible, and they dissipated like mist. "The shield is holding," Marcus said. "They can't get through." For a moment we cheered. We'd done it, we'd survived. But then the Xylar ships changed tactics. They stopped firing and started broadcasting something, a message. "Surrender the human pilot," the message said, "or we will destroy you all." Marcus went pale. "They can't get through the shield," he said, "but they can wait. They can starve us out, and sooner or later the shield will fail when that happens." "We can't let that happen," I said. Marcus nodded grimly. "There's only one way out of this. I have to surrender myself to them. It's the only way to save the planet." "No," I said, "you can't. They'll kill you." Marcus looked at me, and there was a sad smile on his face. "I've been running for 50 years. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of hiding. And your sons, your family, they showed me something I'd forgotten. Something I thought I'd lost forever." "What?" I asked. "Hope," Marcus said. "They showed me hope, and I can't let that die. I can't let the Xylar win, not after everything I've been through." I looked at my sons, who had collapsed onto the floor exhausted from their efforts. They'd saved the planet. They'd saved everyone. And now this human, this kind, brave, strange human, was about to give up his life to protect them. "No," I said, "there has to be another way." Marcus shook his head. "There isn't, but I want you to tell your sons something. Tell them that I'm grateful. Tell them that they were brave. Tell them that they showed me what it means to be human." He paused, and I could see the tears in his eyes. "And tell them that I'm not afraid, because after all these years I'm finally going home." Chapter 9. The next few hours were a blur. Marcus surrendered himself to the Xylar, and the Xylar departed, taking him with them. But not before they'd given the planet an ultimatum: never again shelter a human pilot, never again interfere with the war. And we agreed. What else could we do? But we never forgot what Marcus had done for us. We never forgot the kindness of a human who was willing to give up his life for strangers. And when the Galactic Council eventually arrived to investigate the incident, we told them the truth. We told them about the ancient technology, about the shield, about what Marcus had done. We also told them about the pilots, about the weapon, about the war that had been hidden for so long. For a while nothing happened. The Council denied everything, dismissed it all as the ravings of primitive colonists. But the truth was out there, and it spread. A year later the Council collapsed. The truth about the war was too much to bear, and the Xylar were too powerful to defeat. But in the end it didn't matter, because the war had to end. It had to end so that no more humans had to give up their lives. I never saw Marcus again, but I never stopped thinking about him, and I never stopped believing that somewhere, somehow, he survived. And maybe, just maybe, he returned to the planet that had been his salvation. 2 years had passed since the Xylar attack, and the station was the only place that felt truly safe. The ancient technology was dormant now, but I could still feel its presence in the walls, in the hum of the remaining power, in the almost imperceptible vibration of the ground beneath my feet. My sons had grown. Kale was now a tall, gangly young adult, his carapace fully formed, his mind sharp and curious. Ren was still small, but he had a wisdom beyond his years, and he spent most of his time in the station, studying the ancient technology with a fascination that bordered on obsession. I understood his obsession. I felt it too. There was something about the station, about the technology, that called to us. It was like a song that we could hear, even if we couldn't quite understand the words. "Mom," Kale said one evening, Do you think Marcus is still alive? I looked at my son, and I could see the hope in his eyes, the same hope that Marcus had given us. I don't know, I said. I hope so, I really hope so. Cale nodded. Me too, he was. He was a good person, a real hero. Not a hero, I said. Just a human who was willing to do what he had to do. Cale smiled. That's what makes him a hero, Mom. I was in the research station, examining a new piece of data that had come from the ancient machine, when I heard a sound outside. A transport ship, landing on the overgrown landing pad. I rushed to the window, my heart pounding, and there it was. A small, sleek vessel, painted in the colors of the Earth Expeditionary Forces. I raced outside just as the ship's ramp lowered, and out stepped Marcus. He was thinner than I remembered, his hair streaked with white, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. But he was alive. He was here. Marcus, I shouted, running toward him. You're alive. Marcus grinned. Couldn't keep me dead, Lyra. I'm too stubborn for that. I embraced him, not caring about propriety or protocol. He was alive. He was here. Everything was going to be okay. When I escaped from the Xyler, Marcus said, I knew I had to come back here. I had to see you. I had to see the boys. I had to thank you for everything you did. You don't need to thank us, I said. You were the one who sacrificed yourself. Marcus shook his head. I didn't sacrifice myself. I just bought myself some time, and when I finally managed to escape, I knew that this is where I needed to be. He looked around at the research station, at the planet that had become his home. This is where I'm going to stay, he said. I've been running for too long. It's time to stop running. It's time to start living. I smiled. Welcome home, Marcus. Marcus was the first of his kind to settle on our planet, but he was far from the last. In the years that followed, more humans arrived, fleeing the war, seeking refuge from the Xyler or the Council. We welcomed them all. Because we'd seen what humans were really like. We'd seen their courage, their kindness, their willingness to sacrifice for others. We'd seen the best of them, and we'd never forget it. And so our planet became a haven, a safe place for those who needed it, a symbol of hope. One day, long after the war had finally ended, I found myself standing on the landing pad of the research station, watching a transport ship descend. My sons were with me, now grown into adults, and my grandchildren played at our feet. That's the last of them, Cale said. The last of the refugees. They're all home now. I nodded, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We did it, I said. We saved them, all of them. Marcus appeared beside me, his hand resting on my shoulder. You saved them, he said. You and your family. You showed them that there's always hope, that there's always a way. I looked at him, this human who had become so dear to me. I didn't do it alone, I said. I couldn't have done it without you. Marcus smiled. We did it together, that's what matters. And as the sun set over Kepler 9, casting the sky in shades of purple and green, I knew that we'd done something remarkable, something that would be remembered for generations to come. We'd saved a world, we'd saved a species, and we'd found something that we'd thought was lost forever. Hope. Marcus became a leader among the refugees, a diplomat who helped bridge the gap between humans and the other species of the galaxy. His story, his survival, became an inspiration to millions. And I, a simple farmer from the agricultural district, became something I never expected to be. A mother to 2 sons who had saved the galaxy, a friend to a human who had become a legend. But in the end, that's not what I remembered most about those days. What I remembered was the sound of my sons laughing in the tall grass, the feel of Marcus's hand on my shoulder, reassuring me that everything would be okay, the smell of the Kepler 9 dust, and the warmth of the sun on my exoskeleton. I remembered the small moments, the little things. And those small moments, those little things were enough. Hope is not something you find, it's something you build. It's a simple saying, but it's true. Because hope isn't a destination. It's not something that comes to you when you're lucky. It's something you create every day with every small act of kindness, every moment of courage, every time you refuse to give up. I think about that saying often as I sit on the porch of my dwelling, watching the sunset over the fields that I've tended for so many years. My sons are with me, and their children, and their children's children. And we're all here together because we built hope. We built it out of nothing, out of fear and danger and uncertainty. We built it because we had no other choice. But we built it. And it was enough. But we never forgot what had happened. We never forgot the human who had come to our planet, who had shown us that there was more to the universe than fear and hatred. We never forgot Marcus. And we never forgot that hope is not something you find. It's something you build. Every day. With every small act of kindness. With every moment of courage. With every time you refuse to give up. And I'm still building hope. My sons are grown, and they have children of their own. Grandchildren who run through the tall grass and laugh, just like their father and uncle did so many years ago. Great-grandchildren who will grow up on a planet that is safe, that is free, that is a symbol of what can be achieved when we work together. Marcus is gone now. He died peacefully, surrounded by friends and loved ones, his life finally at rest. But his legacy lives on. In the stories we tell, in the hopes we build, in the small acts of kindness that make the universe a better place. And I think about him often. I think about the crash, the tunnel, the ancient technology. I think about the Xyler and the war and the council. I think about the hope that we built together out of nothing. And I smile. Because we did it. We built hope. We built it from fear and danger and uncertainty, and it grew into something beautiful, something that will last forever. Hope is not something you find. It's something you build. It's a simple saying, but it's true. And I think about it every day. Because hope isn't a destination. It's not something that comes to you when you're lucky. It's something you create every day with every small act of kindness, every moment of courage, every time you refuse to give up. And that's what we did. We built hope. And we're still building it. Every day. With every small act of kindness. With every moment of courage. With every time we refuse to give up.